Welcome back to the action. Here it is round 10 of the Strixhaven Championship. I'm Ailey Loney alongside Cedric Phillips, and we're going to see Matt Sperling and Raph Levy, two of our 8-1 players, going head to head with almost the exact same deck. Cedric,
dare I say breakout deck of the tournament. I don't know if that's fair to say, given it's the second most played archetype here this weekend, but it is a really darn good deck, this Jeskai Turns deck. You know, I think coming into the weekend, Ailey, you know, if I told you, hey, we're in the deeper portion of the historic tournament, not really seeing a lot of Arclight Phoenixes here or anything like that. You might be a little surprised given how many players decided to sleeve up Is It Phoenix? But instead we're seeing this Jeskai Turns deck with Time Warp, which I can't tell. Does Monty like Time Warp, dislike Time Warp? I'm not sure. Not sure how he feels about extra turns. But we're seeing a lot of this take place right now, which is just a lot of Indomitable creativity, a lot of Velomachus, and a lot of Time Warps, and with good reason. The ceiling on the deck is extremely high.
Yeah, and the standout card for me has to be Mystic's Mastery. Just what this card can get done with a graveyard is absolutely insane. If your opponent gets to overload, you are out of there. Scoop them on up, go to the next game if you were so lucky to have another one.
Yeah, and you would think, you know, overloading that thing, how realistic is that? It costs so much mana to do so. Well, these games do have a tendency to kind of drag out and drag on a little bit. So while, you know, 8 mana is a lot and the color requirements are pretty high, you'll be surprised at how often that does happen. And I know talking to Monty and plenty of players that are playing in this tournament, overloading that card happens way more than people may think.
And also the added advantage of the list running so many ways to generate tokens or generate treasure tokens specifically can get you to that 8 mana far quicker than you'd expect. So both players just getting their mana bases sorted out here. 3 lands now down on the battlefield for Matt Sperling. Shocking that Steam Vent's in, and there's going to be a Brainstorm. Ooh.
Right. The first of many between these two competitors, I'm sure. A format-defining card is Brainstorm. We have seen it define the Legacy format for you Legacy fans out there alongside Polluted Delta, Misty Rainforest, and the rest of the fetch lands. In this format, you don't have that interaction so much, so you have to get a little creative in the way that you clear the top of your deck for a Brainstorm, ignoring Fabled Passage, but a card like Prismari's Command, drawing 2 and discarding 2, Expressive Iteration, shuffling with Indomitable Creativity. There are ways to go about doing it, which is just kind of demonstrating that Brainstorm, still as good as we all remember.
Certainly seems like it is. On the end step here, we're going to see a magnum opus go into the graveyard and a treasure token created there from Matt Sperling. As the turn comes back to him now, it's always so tempting when you got 4 mana and a token to hit to go for the Indomitable Creativity, but you got to keep an eye out for any potential counters. And I do believe there is one in hand there for Raph Levy and Miscast.
Well, what's also kind of attractive about this is, you know, Sperling has a miscast of his own too, so it might be just go time of play this with a miscast up to defend against whatever reactive permission you may have and hope for the best here. Now, I believe that Sperling and Levy have tested together. If not, their deck lists are disturbingly close. But what that means more than anything is that both of these players know what the other is up to. We're open decklist tournament here, of course, as I've mentioned many times. And so knowing that, you know exactly what your opponent can and cannot have in a situation like this. So miscast looks attractive here from Sperling's side as a way to defend himself when going off.
Yeah, so in response, we could see Raph Levy fire off a Prismari Command in the attempts to kill off the target for Indomitable Creativity, but as you mentioned, there is the miscast, so that unfortunately will not stick. And we're going to get a big old dragon on the battlefield here.
Yeah, this is interesting because, you know, Raph also has a copy of miscast in his hand as well that he could cast or miscast. I'm better than that. But we're going to see a miscast right now from Sperling on this Prismari Command. And
trading pleasantries across the table.
Yeah, it's an emoji off. And, well, Raph Levy, you may not get another turn. We'll have to see how things go for Sperling.
Unfortunately, no Time Warp there, so just a Brainstorm or an Expressive Iteration. Let's take a look at a few more cards, and perhaps send back some of these big chunky cards. Or even the lands, because we could also set up a turn where we get multiple Magna Opus in the graveyard for Sperling. Interesting decision here.
Now, don't sleep on Raph's hand, as Sperling is making this decision on what 2 cards to put back, which is going to, of course, that's going to influence his next couple of turns. Looks like he's putting a Magma Opus back among other cards. Not sure if he wanted to order it that way or not. I think he may have wanted to go Triome and then Magma Opus so that he draws the Triome and then hits the Opus with the Velomachus Lorehold. But turning our attention over to Raph's side of things, he's got a Dwarven Mine, but not able to make the token with the Dwarven Mine for the creativity. So a bit of a bummer there for Levy.
Yeah, he's going to have to wait to do that next turn. Does have the second copy of Dwarven Mine in hand, so we'll be able to get that going, unless he just doesn't get another turn again, which seems to be the plan here for Matt Sperling, as Time Warp is found off the top. And we're going to take another turn, and all we need is one more turn here for Sperling to get the victory.
And don't forget that Sperling does have a copy of Mystic's Mastery in hand as well, so that could copy a Time Warp from the graveyard. Not to mention that Velomachus could just hit again next turn. So hitting a Time Warp there is very nice there for Sperling.
First things first, going to go for the Prismari command, targeting himself with the 2 modes. Going to draw 2 cards, discard 2, and then create a treasure token. Raph Levy only has that miscast at his disposal currently. Hovering it, and is going to go for it. So no Prismari command there for Sperling, but we'll be able to get Magma Opus into the graveyard and create a treasure token.
Yep.
Oh, this is looking very good indeed here for Sperling. He's going to be able to take another turn, and that is going to be the game here. We'll see Raph Levy scoop him on up, and now let's go to game number 2.
Easy does it there for Sperling, and you know the talk of this tournament has been around Logan Nettles, it's been around Seth Manfield, but we can't sleep on Matt Sperling as well, who, you know, Ailey, he lost round number 1 in the feature match area, and past that, well, I think our fine viewers can see that number on the screen. 8 wins and 1 loss. So, you know, no one likes to start a tournament with a loss, right? It's always a bummer of a feeling. And Matt actually lost his first round in the feature match area. So it's like, oh, man, you know, here we go, off to a bad start. But what makes these players great is being able to bounce back from a shaky start and not letting that influence their entire tournament. And Sperling, after that round 1 loss, has run off 8 in a row and now up a game against the Hall of Famer.
Going to look to continue those winning ways for sure. As we take a look at the sideboarding here, you can see the package of the big old Nezahul Primal Tide, bringing those Shark Typhoons, all of the interaction, all the uncountable fries. And for the most part, both players are sideboarding exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, you see the graphic there, Mystical Disputes, both players bringing in 3, 2 fries, 2 Gus, 2 Nezahuls, and the whole boat of Shark Typhoons. What do we go? What do they call a pack of sharks? There's a name for that? Is it a frenzy? Right, a frenzy. They're bringing in a frenzy of sharks, each player.
I think you can call it a school too, but frenzy sounds more badass, so we'll go with that.
Now, what cards are coming out here are a little bit interesting, a little bit different. You see Velomachus is coming out for both players, Time Warp, so that whole package is going to be gone for both players. Mystic's Mastery, a couple copies for Raph going out. Doesn't look like any for Sperling. Yeah, Creativity, a couple copies going out for both players, and of course those burn spells going out. But what's notable here is that Sperling is actually sideboarding out a couple copies of Brainstorm, a card that you think no one would sideboard out ever, but you got to remember, and I mentioned this earlier, this isn't Legacy insofar as the interactions with Brainstorm and fetch lands and other cantrips like your Preordains and your Ponders of the world. Brainstorm's a little bit worse in this format. Now, being a little bit worse there, Ailey, means that it's awesome as opposed to freaking awesome. But to see Sperling sideboard out a couple of those, a little bit unusual. Obviously a conscious decision, but maybe a little bit of an unusual one.
Interested to see what he kept in favor of those brainstorms. You know, what was the competition between? Which 2 cards was he agonizing over there to get one of them in, one of them out? Oh
no, Twitch chat, who, Ailey, as you know, is never wrong.
Oh yes.
Are informing us that it is a shiver of sharks.
Are they schooling me in Strixhaven?
A shiver of sharks?
Really? All right, to Google.
I promise it's not a tornado of sharks. I mean, I guess it depends on what you're watching, but...
All right, fine. I'll give you that one, Twitch chat. Twitch chat are never wrong. They always have lethal. They always see the lines. They are omnipotent.
Agree to agree.
All right, what's happening in this matchup? We've got a treasure down on the battlefield so far, courtesy of Magma Opus hitting the bin. And we're going to see similar here from Matt Sperling, whose hand is very land heavy, but does have Indomitable Creativity and Prismari Command to get things going for him.
Well, having lands is certainly a nice thing in the matchup. When you're in a control mirror like this, I know this is a little bit more control combo-y, but when you are in a control mirror like this, hitting your land drops is very important for those multiple spell turns that you will oftentimes have as, you know, you play a big spell, there's a counter spell back. You want to be able to engage in that type of behavior. So Sperling having quite a few lands here, less than ideal when you compare it to Levy's hand, but if Levy starts missing land drops, excuse me, that is ideal for Sperling.
Yeah, and just being able to fire off Prismari Command, targeting that treasure, it's such a mean thing to do, and I wonder if Raph is going to fire off Mystical Dispute here to protect it. Or even the Memory Lapse. Tough decision here for Raph. As you mentioned, doesn't have any more lands in hand, so really wants to keep that mana on the battlefield in order to fire off Indomitable Creativity, perhaps next turn.
It's what I would consider to be a good enough Mystical Dispute target. You know, Prismari Command is a really, really good card, so just kind of taking care of that kind of makes some sense to me.
Memory Lapse drawn here from Matt Sperling, so he'll have some ways to protect Indomitable Creativity or Magma Opus, one of the more powerful spells when it comes time to cast it. But for now, Raph Levy is just going to make a little itty bitty baby shark and draw a Brainstorm off the top there. Still, no more lands.
Yep, a bit of a concern. Access to 5 mana, but one of those is temporary in the treasure. You actually saw Sperling try to go after that treasure with the Prismari Command, so Sperling understands from his side of things just how important the mana aspect of things is in this matchup, but also just the ability to blow up a land, in quotes, is actually a pretty nice thing to be doing as well. And
oh my goodness me.
Well, Raph's face tells the whole story, doesn't it?
Welcome to Brick City, friends. Ugh. That feels awful. Okay, so game plan now from Raph. I mean, he does have the follow-up Prismari Command, so can unstick the top of the library at least after brainstorming, but if I'm Matt Sperling, I'm going to see this and be like, rub my fingers together and cast a Memory Lapse.
Tough road to hoe here for Raph.
Goodness, lands aplenty here for Sperling.
Yeah, and you know, while you take a look, right? You take a look at Sperling's hand, you see 3 lands, 3 spells. You take a look at Raph's hand, you see 5 spells, and then 2 more spells coming. And so in a way, it's like Sperling is flooding out. I mean, Sperling, I think, you know, he'd like another spell or 2, but, you know, being able to hit these land drops is advantageous in a situation like this. And Raph being a little bottlenecked is going to force him to play this game in a way that I don't think he wants to play it. Again, I don't think it's full panic mode here or anything, but Raph's reaction to missing with that Brainstorm did tell the whole story about how he felt about missing a land drop or 2 in the next couple of turns.
Yeah, we've already seen so many times in this tournament that having that mana advantage, being able to win the counter war on the stack, can be the make or break in the game. So I'm going to have to try and find a land here very, very quickly for Raph, as he's going to target the artifact on the other side of the battlefield. Going to get rid of that treasure and draw 2 cards. Oh no, excuse me, he's going to create a treasure token instead.
Well, what he's going to do is draw a Prismari Command next turn. That's what he's going to do. Right? Because Memory Lapse is going to take care of that.
Yeah, you like this card so much. Here, play it again. Oof.
Memory Lapse, so incredibly powerful. You see Raph has 2 copies in his hand. He's looking for a primo spot to be able to use his copies of that. But again, he's a little bit choked up on mana right now. He'd love this command to resolve, to make a treasure, yes, and also just be able to draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards and clear the top of his deck a little bit and get an actual fresh draw step.
Yeah, I like this. Before draw, we're going to see Prismari Command fired off again by Raph Levy. No response here from Sperling now, though, as we will be able to destroy this treasure. But in response, Sperling will fire that off. And we're going to see Magma Opus here go into the graveyard and create a treasure token once again. Is he free and clear now, though, to double creativity? He's not just yet.
Well, Mizzix's Mastery is an interesting draw. Curious if Sperling wants to try to let this bad boy rip or not.
What do you value more in this instance?
Mastery. I think this is
You
a
have
good.
to get things
This
back.
is a good test spell. Also, if you're thinking about it, this is a red card, so Mystical Dispute does not work itself into the equation. And so if Raph is going to counter this Indomitable Creativity, that means he's going to have to burn at least one treasure, potentially two treasures, which means that you're effectively blowing up one of his lands in quotes, potentially two of his lands in quotes. So I can understand why Sperling's going for this. Again, one of the things I love about having face cams in an event like this is look, people's facial reactions do tell the whole story. Raph is a seasoned veteran, Hall of Famer. In 2006 is when he got inducted. That was a long time ago.
That is a long time ago.
Because he's been crushing it for that long. Yet you'll still see him react in a way of like, okay, I actually have to think about what to do here. This is not an easy decision. This is a problematic play that Sperling is playing. And how do I want to move forward here? And now you're seeing him cash in two of those treasure tokens for a Prismari command.
I kind of like this because this clears the way for him next turn to do his own Indomitable Creativity and leave Sperling without any reaction.
You make a very good point. He can cash that in right now if he so chooses.
I mean, why not? There's Nezahal on top of the library. You're going to get him. At least clear the way there a bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to argue. I do like attacking first. Get the easy part out of the way. Then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, let's get some creativity flowing here for Ref Levy. Who's going to be the sacrifice? Oh, poor little shark. You did your job, but now you get to turn it into a big old... What is that thing? A kraken? Leviathan? I don't know.
It is a dinosaur?
Dinosaur?
It is a dinosaur.
Oh, wow, I whiffed all that.
It might look like it's a shark, but it's actually a dinosaur.
It's a big thing that's going to eat you. Let's go with that. Okay, so Nezahal Primal Tide is on the battlefield and is able to protect itself from any shenanigans that Matt Sperling may find, but we are able to Mizzix Mastery and go and get Magma Opus.
Yeah, so this one, Nezahal is basically the mirror breaker. You saw both players get away from their big dragon plus Time Warp package and go towards, hey, I'm going to Indomitable Creativity this onto the battlefield, Nezahal, because it is a mirror breaker that's essentially impossible to kill. So also a card drawing engine as well, which
crazy.
is a real pain in the butt. So
it was a shake of the head there from Sperling. What's that in response to?
That's a good question. Actually, not entirely sure what he may be disappointed with outside of just being pretty far behind in the game. Might just be a little frustrated by that. Here's a Brainstorm. Again, Sperling did sideboard out 2 copies of Brainstorm.
It's always a tricky situation to be in where you have the 7/7 on the other side of the battlefield. That's just going to draw. Hey, look, we found the lands. That's good, right?
That's no longer a problem. So Raph has lands, and those lands are great alongside cycling or, I suppose, hard casting Shark Typhoon. But it's those 2 copies of Memory Lapse that are going to be, I imagine, pretty darn good now over the course of this game because Raph is ahead on the battlefield insofar as he has a Nezahal and Sperling does not. And so that means that Sperling's going to have to act in ways that he doesn't want to act. And when that happens, that's when Memory Lapse is at its absolute best.
We're going to see both Triumphs go back to the top of the library there, courtesy of the Brainstorm. Dwarven Mine hits the battlefield, creates a little 1/1 dwarf. And the turn's going to pass back. Now, Matt Sperling is shields down. He's got 2 red mana available, so Raph Levy will know that there's no counterspells coming, at least for this turn.
Looks like a miscast was the draw, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so just 7 cards flat in hand right now for Levy.
Nezahal's going to get to swing in. The 1/1 will jump in the way. Big old chump block there. Now, would it be safe to say that Raph Levy is good to just pass a turn? Doesn't need to do anything right now. Just wait for your opponent to budge.
Yeah, I don't think he's forced to play anything. There's no reason to hardcast a Shark Typhoon. You're happy to cycle. You've got multiple counter spells in hand. You're ahead on the battlefield. You're ahead of cards in hand. You're ahead in basically all areas, I suppose, behind temporarily as far as life total is concerned. And Sperling, because he has Shark Typhoon and he actually has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He has more mana than Raph, so the shark that he can make is pretty big, and he can try to turn this game into a bit of a racing situation. I don't know how effectively because Raph also has a Shark Typhoon, but he can certainly try.
I guess with the cards that he has at his disposal, it might be the best option for him as we find Magma Opus off the top here for Raph Levy. Turn gets passed back. Does have a couple lands to deploy. We'll also have that big old Shark Typhoon when he needs it. Down to 8 goes Matt Sperling. It's getting very close here.
Raph analyzing, knowing that he's pretty far ahead in this game, doesn't want to do anything to lose this game, just trying to think of ways that he could lose this game. Looks like the Dwarven Mind's going to crank out a little 1-1, which, that has the opportunity to block the 4-4 if necessary. Unsurprisingly, it looks like Sperling is going to make a big old shark, so these draw steps are going to be pretty important. One off the cycle, one off the actual card he's going to draw for his turn.
Shields down now, the opportunity to Magma Opus. Well, not just yet. We're a little mana short there before we can do that, but soon that'll be live. There's the Triumph off the top there from Matt Sperling. And another Triumph.
Less than ideal.
This is not great. All right,
Less than ideal.
Let's cycle this away. Let's have a look. See on the top of the library. Is there anything useful? It's an island. Okay, this is problematic here for Sperling. Just a little bit. There's another 1-1. I mean, at least it's a land that's useful.
Well, let's get busy. Let's get busy. Ain't got much else going on, so.
Does Levy have lethal next turn?
Well, on the battlefield as things currently stand, yes. He's looking at 8 points of damage, right? He also has Shark Typhoon in his hand. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he can cycle for up to 5 if he wants to. It's a question of if he actually wants to cash in the treasure token or not. Levy may also have interest in maybe a small cycle of a Shark Typhoon for a chump block to be able to leave up counter magic in this situation. So
yeah, if he leaves the treasure up, he would be able to cast Magma Opus next turn and tap the blocker, and then swing in with the 2 creatures he's got available.
Yeah, see, that's a little baby cycle because it looks like Levy has lethal on the battlefield. Sperling is going to play a Dwarven Mind post-combat to be able to chump the Nezahal. So Sperling is not dead right now unless that 1/1 goes away. And Sperling also has 3 mana up that he's representing and 3 cards in hand. So, Raph doesn't know exactly what Matt has in his hand. Raph's hand is good against opposing spells because of the counter magic, but he doesn't know for sure that Magma Opus is going to resolve.
No, he doesn't at all, especially without having any mana up to protect it in miscast.
Yeah.
So it's curious to see if he's just going to go for it. Does he think that Matt has absolutely nothing? That is the question. All right, let's see some big brain plays here, Raph.
It's easy. You just go for it. Why would Matt have anything?
Yeah, precisely.
He just cycled 2 cards in his main phase. Why would he have anything? See, and you're actually... Look at this. You see this attack here of just the attack with the 7/7, not the 1/1, trying to attack for a lethal, quote-unquote. So that means that 1/1's back on defense. So I wouldn't be surprised if Levy doesn't go for Magma Opus this turn. Might just play the copy of Dwarven Mind and pass the turn back with all that counter magic up again.
Yep. It's definitely the safer play as we're going to see the second copy of Dwarven Mind hit the battlefield. Another blocker up. Then at this end step, Rogan Triumph is going to cycle away. Matt Sperling, what can you find? It is do or die time.
Sperling's best draw right now is Shark Typhoon. Far and away. I did not find one because, again, spells are not what Sperling is looking for when those memory lapses and miscasts are over there. So he would love, love, love to find a Shark Typhoon right now.
Hi.
That's
Can we cost you?
We hasn't played a land yet. That's not bad.
Okay.
So now the question is, okay, so if you play land, you play Nezahal, you get Opus right out of the ball game, I believe.
Yeah. I don't know if he can play it. I don't know if he's got the luxury to do so right now. So it's just going to be the 6/6 swinging in. And Ether Gust is a defense against Magma Opus.
Yeah, I would be surprised if Sperling actually casts this Nezahal right now because he kept up appearances last turn, which he had. I mean, he had nothing to do So, he kept up appearances insofar as I have 3 mana available, don't do a thing because I have a thing. And then he cycled a Triome. Now he's also cycled a Triome on his main phase. He cycled a Triome on his end step. He drew a card for his turn. He cycled a Triome on his main phase, right? So he's seen effectively 3 new cards.
Yeah.
So, Sperling gets to go, hey, I have a thing again, basically. Now, we'll see if Raph is going to buy into that or not, as he's going to do a little brainstorming.
Ooh, nice. Picked up quite a few good cards there. In the Ether Gust, as well as a Mystical Dispute. I believe that's a mountain on the side there, so gonna be quite happy to send back a couple lands, unnecessary lands, and a spare memory lapse.
Yeah, Gust is actually probably the most relevant card that Raph has found in this situation, because as reactive as his hand is, which means that Sperling can't cast any relevant spells, Gust actually takes care of that problematic blue-red elemental token that's looking to do some blocking here. And so Gust is actually going to play the role of removal spell in this situation, get that 4/4 out of the way, and allow Nezahal and friends to be able to attack for the victory, I believe.
So here's the question again. Does Raph think that Sperling has... Oh, he's going for it. What is he doing? What is he doing?
Yeah, is he going to cast Nezahal? Well, Sperling, rock and a hard place, right? You cast Nezahal, you die to Opus. You don't cast Nezahal, you die to Gust. So if he's just going to play the big old shark, it can't be countered. But Opus should be good here. Unless I'm missing something, which I hope I'm not.
At least on Raph's turn, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can just tap down the 2 blockers. Nezahal, draw a couple cards for you. But, I mean, that's also 4 damage to face if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, looks like we're going to tie up the game here. Ether Gust going to send away this 4/4, and Sperling is going to, unfortunately, be stuck between a rock and an Elder Dinosaur at this point.
That's right.
All right, here it goes. Magma Opus being fired off by Levy. He'll be able to tap down the blocker, get in there for 9 points of damage, and do an extra 4 points of damage to face.
One of my absolute favorite cards from Strixhaven, Magma Opus.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome name, incredibly powerful, super flexible. Gonna be seeing a lot of that in Constructed. So what are we gonna we're gonna phase out the shark here real quick. Maybe yes, maybe no. Not even gonna bother. Whee. Come on in here, Raph. Get those last 9 points of damage through.
So we tie it up there between Levy and Matt Sperling, both players looking to improve on their 8-1 records. And that game, like, so well played between both players, bluffing spells, keeping up the relevant spells when needed to counter something. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this third game.
Sperling going to be on the play here again. This is not a judgment. It's just a curiosity to see 2 copies of Brainstorm being sideboarded out here by Matt. I find it to be incredibly interesting. Just I didn't think I'd be seeing any blue-based players sideboarding out any copies of Brainstorm. But I will say this, also worth noting, Matt plays a lot of older formats. I mean, he is what I like to call a pro's pro, insofar as he plays like all of Magic. He celebrates the whole catalog. He's an old school player. He likes vintage. He likes legacy. He likes all of it. So if there is going to be a player in this tournament who I think is well equipped to know when to sideboard out a couple of Brainstorms, I do think it is Matt Sperling. And so while it might look a little bit strange on the surface, and it certainly does look strange to me, it's not a judgment. It's just an observation of he's comfortable doing this.
Let's take a look at the opening hands here for game number 3. Start things off with a Triumph from Levy's side of things. And for Sperling, not all that much going on early. We can get Magma Opus into the graveyard and create a treasure to be able to Mizzix Mastery on turn 4 and get that Magma Opus out. Levy's got a handful of interaction there and the Brainstorm to be able to shore up his draws.
This is pretty cute. A little bit of an observation here that I didn't notice at first glance, but I'm noticing now.
Mm-hmm.
So who won that last game?
Raph.
And whose turn is it right now?
It is Raph's.
So Sperling chose to draw.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh.
But why?
Well, control mirror.
Uh-huh.
You want the extra card. You're not in a rush. You saw that last game took a while, right? You're just kind of going back and forth, land drops, all that other jazz. So rarely in Constructed do we see a player choose to draw? But here we are. So Sperling, boy, he's really digging in, right? He goes, couple brainstorms, out of here. On the draw, in a control mirror, yes please. A little Guillaume Waffle Tapa-esque. So this is boy, I love to see it. I don't know. I'm not going to comment on if it's right or wrong because I don't know. But boy, do I love to see it.
All right, well, let's see what shenanigans Sperling has planned as Magma Opus is on the stack here. Going to be discarded to create a treasure token. Doesn't have the ability yet to fire off the Mizzix Mastery. We have Brainstorm and... Oh, excuse me. We have 2 copies of Memory Lapse in hand there for Levy, so... Also the ability here to Prismari Command and kill that treasure straight away. Oh, that's so tempting.
Yeah, and it's juicy. Yeah.
It's rude and it's juicy. Go for it.
Yeah. So... So this is a tough spot right here. You can see Raph, he wants to do it. He just wants to go, Prismari Command, blow up your treasure, pick a different mode, probably draw 2, discard 2. But is he actually willing to fire it off? Looks like the answer is yes. Okay.
Nice. I like it.
So actually, he's going to create a treasure token as opposed to drawing and discarding to give himself maybe a little bit of a mana issue. Yeah.
And then Indomitable Creativity Nezahal? Not yet.
Well, the question is, because Sperling's just gonna play land and pass.
Uh-huh.
I mean, is Raph just gonna? I don't think you have it. Bang! Like I don't think
YOLO.
So.
You could see him holding full control there, being like, "I can do a thing."
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. It's the biggest brain play of all time if it does. I think Raph's just probably gonna pass a turn, play a land, pass a turn with Lapse, and Brainstorm up, and sit pretty steady here.
Yeah. The Rogan Tribe is just going to hit the battlefield. We'll pass the turn back to Matt Sperling. We're going to see this Rogan Triumph cycle on the end step, get a look at another card, and hope to not flood as miserably. Oh, boy. Okay. All right. Shock Typhoon. That's a thing we can work with here.
The thing is that even though Matt is flooding out a little bit here, because of how their decks are constructed, and both players know how their decks are constructed, Raph can't, aggressively go for something, because if he aggressively goes for something and misses, he can immediately get punished in the same way that Raph is trying to punish Matt. So he just has to kind of sit kind of tight.
Yeah. Just sit and wait for the right opportunity to pounce. We're going to go here with an expressive iteration for Raph. He's going to take a look at the top 3 cards. Let's have a look-see and see what he finds. Is there a response here from Sperling playing the Do I Have It, Don't I game very well, as we find a Shock Typhoon and 2 lands here for Raph Levy.
Yeah, Typhoon's a nice one to add to the hand. Great card in the matchup. That's why you saw each player sideboard in 4 of that card.
Yeah. Steam Vents will go back into the library. Here's an island. That'll be the land for turn 4F, able to keep up 2 counterspells, as well as the Brainstorm or a medium-sized shark.
One of the nice things about this kind of strategy in Jeskai is that these lands, they fix your mana, but they also do cycle.
Yeah.
It's a bonus.
It's one saving grace of them, yeah. Right, so another land off the top here for Sperling. It's going to kick things off with a Fabled Passage, it looks like.
It looks like he's eyeing that up.
Try and give that deck a bit of a shuffle. Hold up Shark Typhoon for the end step, perhaps.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he doesn't cycle Shark Typhoon on the end step just because he needs a little help. Just really got nothing going on right now. Looks like Raph's going to play a Brainstorm. Just a couple of lands and a Memory Lapse added to his hand. So 2 cards are going to have to go back. No fetch right now for Raph to shuffle the bad cards away. Still not sure if this is a situation where Raph actually wants to try to resolve creativity. He does have some backup in so far as he can play creativity plus Lapse.
Yeah, that's an option. Does he expect 2 counterspells here from Sperling? It's a very likely possibility, considering he's got 2 in his hand of his own. So
yeah, well, one thing's interesting insofar as Sperling has not done any manipulation though, right? So he hasn't done any brainstorming. He hasn't done any. I mean, he cycled a couple of triumphs, but past that, he hasn't done really much of anything as far as manipulating and sculpting. So I do think it's interesting about if Raph wants to go for it or not, but that question has been answered. Now we're just going to see Matt cycle a Shark Typhoon. So Raph not willing to pull the trigger just yet. Prismari Command, okay. Still, Sperling is just still kind of whiffing right now as far as, I mean, any permission. It's nice to have a Shark right now on the battlefield, but Raph also has a Shark Typhoon in his hand too, so... Some interesting back and forth here between these two players. I guess we'll go back Raph's way for now. He's just going to play a land. Is he actually going to try for creativity this time? I don't think so. I think it's probably just going to be a big Shark. So, how about a Prismari Command? All right. Prismari Command it is. Looks like Sperling's going to draw 2, discard 2, and then create a treasure token. My partner in crime, Alias V, of course, will be back shortly. We're working with her. Small, minor microphone problem, so I'm going to do my best Vin Scully impersonation for you fine folks watching. We'll see what 2-card Sperling does want to discard right now. He does have the ability to play towards Nezahal in a very meaningful way. It looks like he's going to play one of his 2 Brainstorms that he does have left in his deck after sideboard. So remember this game as Matt draws 2 Mystic's Masteries and a copy of Miscast. He's going to have to put 2 cards back and then draw one of them because Brainstorm's putting the 2 cards back on top of the deck and there is no Fabled Passage on the battlefield. But it is worth noting again that Sperling chose to draw first in this game, which is a very old school tactic in control mirrors, and this deck definitely becomes a control deck after sideboard. And now we head back Sperling's way. He draws a copy of Mystic's Mastery. Already had one of those, one on top of the deck as well, so he's Mastery flooded. As Typhoon's going to come in here for 3 points of damage, Levy's going to fall down to 14. Now, a big question here for Sperling is he willing to just say, Dwarven Mine, make a 1/1, Nezahal, pass? Can't be countered, makes a lot of sense to do it. He is going to do it, and you can see Levy's reaction in the top left-hand corner of the screen. Again, not thrilled at what he's seeing happen. Now, this does tap, quote-unquote, Sperling out, but don't ignore that treasure token that can cast that miscast. I think that's going to play a little bit of an effect into this game. And now, if you're Raph Levy, you have to figure out, okay, it's time for me to figure out how to sequence through this, because Nezahal's here. You know, there's no more biding a time about this being a thing that might show up, maybe not show up, has to be creativity for, and we'll fight over creativity. Sperling drew it. It can't be countered. It's on the battlefield. So now I believe Raph's going to have to pivot to, let's make some big sharks. This one's going to be a 5/5. He'll draw a copy of Mystical Dispute off of the cycle. Fry is the draw for the turn. You see a little bit of a reaffirming head nod there of drawing the Fry. Counterspells really is the last thing that Raph needs at this point. He's got plenty of those. So it looks like he could probably serve in for 5 in the air here comfortably with this Shark. Bring Sperling down to 13. And then if he'd like, he can creativity away this Shark Typhoon token and go get a Nezahal of his own. Because spells is something that Raph's really not that afraid of with all those memory lapses and that Mystical Dispute in hand. He's not worried about opposing counter magic all that much with the Fry. Now, Sperling will get to draw a card off of the creativity here, and he's drawn, well, there's that 3rd Mystic's Mastery. And Miscast isn't going to get you too far in this spot against creativity. So pardon me on sacrificing the Shark token. Let's just sacrifice the treasure. Here's the Miscast. Now, it's worth noting, Ailey, since I know you're back with me now, that this Miscast, if Raph does pay for it, pays the 3, it's going to tap him out, so maybe we might see him dispute this or just memory lapse the Miscast.
All right, sorry for leaving you hanging there, friend.
It's okay.
Go off and do, I don't know, time warp things. Get stuck in an infinite loop somewhere.
Well,
right,
I blame Monty. So
yes.
What you've missed here is Nezahal has resolved. Sperling drew it and cast it. We got a reaction from Raph, not thrilled with it because it's a problematic creature and it's what these players are trying to do after sideboard. Some minor Shark Typhoon Wars, and now we have an Indomitable Creativity on the stack. Sperling's going to try to counter it with a miscast. Raph is going to fight back with a Mystical Dispute. Raph's going to win this war, going to lose this treasure token. That's going to turn into a Nezahal. So there that is. And now Levy has up Lapse or Fry to be able to cast versus Sperling's hand of 3 Mizzix Masteries, an Expressive Iteration, and a Mystical Dispute. But I think Sperling might be in a pretty good position because he can go Mastery Dispute right now.
Yeah, this is looking pretty good here. If I'm not mistaken, he would be able to go Opus, get the treasure token, and be able to back it up with a Mystical Dispute. But let's see how he wants to go for this, or go for this turn here. As Mizzix Mastery is going to hit the stack.
He's got
There's
Opus.
Magma Opus in the graveyard.
I think he's just clear to win now, right? Because you... Well, okay, so he draws Mizzix Mastery. So you Mizzix Mastery your Opus. Levy lapses. You dispute. You resolve your Opus. Tap whatever you want. 4 to the dome.
Mm-hmm.
I think just finish the game. Now, let's see, 10. Okay. I take it back. Raph, a genius. gonna let this resolve, right? So you let this all happen. You take your 4, you let the permanents tap, all this other nonsense, right? You fry the Shark Typhoon token, you take 8.
But he does have a Mystical Dispute backup.
Well, you can't counter fry.
No, you can't counter fry. That's correct.
Right? So if Raph just says all of this is fine, right? Like if he doesn't lapse any of this, he just says like, this is all good. Which I think, yeah, that's what he's doing. And then he just goes, fry your shark. So I don't die. And then figure out what to do on his own turn. He might be able to win that way. So I thought we might see a lapse and maybe like him losing a counter war. But instead, Raph with a kind of a heads up play here of, I'm going to actually just let Opus resolve, do all of that nonsense. And then I'm gonna fry your shark token.
Very well done there by Ref Levy, sitting with a clutch of memory lapses still in hand, a Mizzix Master of his own, as well as an Indomitable Creativity. Matt Sperling does also have a follow-up play here. Can he get the job done with another Mizzix Mastery?
Yeah, I think Matt has another Mizzix Mastery to play now.
Mm-hmm.
And what's in the graveyard?
Gets Prismari come on for the
Oh
win.
my gosh, that's gonna be enough to get the job done. So sick.
Very well played there by Matt Sperling, able to get the job done in the face of so many counterspells there from Raph Levy. What a game between these two players. I'm sad I missed a bit of it.
Yeah, it got a little bit busy there in the couple of turns that you missed, unfortunately. This game turned into a Nezahal war, a Shark Typhoon war. And what's got to be frustrating here for Levy is that over the course of this game, he had those memory lapses in his hand for an extremely long time, and they never came to fruition. And you can see the look on his face as he takes that headset off, Ailey. He is questioning, what did I do wrong here? What happened? How did I lose this game?
Well, I'm sure if Money wants to get his teeth stuck into one of these matchups, he can sure go and have a look at it. And give us the top tier analysis to see exactly where Raph Levy could have won that one. But congratulations to Matt Sperling getting the victory there.